Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and today is a great day for DC Trainings. I'm just laughing because I've just had a great time preparing for our webinar today. And as with my comment, today's a great day for DC Trainings. Excuse me. As doctors and as CAs and as anyone who is engaged in bringing chiropractic to the masses, we have to train, don't we? We have to actually spend time in training to make sure that we are doing the best that we can and providing the best level of service for our patients. And today we're going to wrap up, this is week 8 of module 3. So we're going to wrap up the report of findings module, and then we'll be moving into financial arrangements. Michael Jordan had a great quote that I love and I've remembered for all these years. And his quote was, if you can't do it in practice, you'll never do it in the game. If you can't do it in practice, you'll never do it in the game. And another person who comes to mind along that same philosophy is Steph Curry, who's, as many of you know, is a very famous basketball player with the Warriors basketball team. So Michael Jordan was with not with the Warriors, but Michael Jordan was years ago, I think he was with the Lakers, but Steph Curry is with the Warriors. And both of them practice that approach to performing at an elite level. And I want to invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to perform at an elite level when it comes to delivering chiropractic care, right? When we're talking about delivering chiropractic care, that may mean that you're at the front desk as a CA, rescheduling an appointment, scheduling a new patient. It may mean that you're the doctor delivering a super specific chiropractic adjustment. Whatever your role is in delivering this elite level of care, we want to strive for perfection. And as we wrap up our report of findings module, know that you are introducing an individual or a family or whoever to a whole new paradigm of healthcare. And when I say paradigm, a paradigm is a new way of thinking about something that you previously had another way of thinking about. That made sense. It's a new way of thinking about an idea or a concept or a philosophy or an approach. So in our elite level of care, we're actually inviting patients to do a paradigm shift into a new way of thinking. And we started that with module 2, with the new patient module, where we introduced it to a brand new patient. Now we're wrapping up, continuing that thread and introducing it to somebody in the context of what? What's our new context as they go through their second appointment? The new concept or the new paradigm is not just chiropractic care is good for overall health and well-being through an optimal functioning nervous system. Now we're introducing the concept of lifetime care 1 year at a time. Lifetime care 1 year at a time, right? So that's why we recommend in DC Trainings 12-month care plans. And using that approach sets the vision beyond just pain relief, beyond just short-term quick fixes. We want patients that are engaged in our care. They're engaged in this level, this top shelf level of care, or this elite level of healthcare. Okay, so let's jump in and let's talk about this last section. Now, I have to just say as a quick disclaimer, in my town, many of you remember a couple months back where we were having a subluxation in our phone system, and AT&T, not to throw them under the bus, but that's who provides our internet and phone system, was having issues in my area. They're having more of those issues today, and they were having them yesterday. So our phones are sort of intermittent. And if the phone suddenly or if our Zoom call today just drops out, you'll know it's because of this AT&T issue that's sort of widespread through actually 3 counties in my area that they're having trouble with. So I'm going to do my best to get through everything. If it suddenly drops off, I'll just say, I want to say quickly, we won't have a webinar next week. Next week on Thursday is the 4th of July. It's Independence Day, where we'll be celebrating independence from pharmaceutical products through natural chiropractic care. So we won't have a webinar next week. We will kick off module 4 the following week with financial arrangements. So we'll have a little bit of a gap for 2 weeks while we start the new module and while you all enjoy your 4th of July Independence Day holiday. Okay, so those two sort of housekeeping items were important. Let's dive into our webinar now. Our content for the week now. And let me just go back to this page. There we go. And I need to share my screen. Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay. So let's dive in to week 8 of module 3. And in this, actually, let me move this over so you're not staring at that toolbar. That's no fun. Okay. So as you can see, we've gone through this whole process for 8 weeks. And it's exciting for me because every time we go through this process, I get great questions, I get great feedback, and we sort of elevate our practice to the next level. So let's go through reactivating new patients. And what's important about this, and actually, I'm sorry, that title is a misnomer. It's actually reactivating new patient ROF. So that is our topic today. But as we go through this is a recap of everything we've gone through in this module, because when you have a reactivating new patient that then goes through a new report of findings, they're actually getting a recap of what they experienced in their first report of findings, albeit in many cases it's sort of abbreviated, right? So that's what we're going to go through here. Okay, so anyways, here's a picture. This is me with Carla, and she's my pretend reactivating new patient. I'm re-explaining the X-ray findings. I'm comparing it with examples and going through that process. So that's how it goes. Now, because of what we covered in module 6 with goals and marketing, there's a lot of marketing in place. Maybe you're sending out text message reminders. Maybe it's birthday emails. Maybe it's reactivation phone calls. Through those ongoing marketing efforts, you're going to have patients that come back to see you, right? And this should be almost a daily occurrence. I had shared this in the other seminar, but this was in module 6, but as many as 50% of your new patients may be returning former patients. That's a big number. And it means that you're going to constantly be having these patients coming back and seeking you out for care. We don't want to burn the bridge. We want to invite them back and re-educate them in a way so that eventually they adopt our new paradigm and they continue with that chiropractic care, right? So we want to have lots of patients coming in all the time for those continuation of chiropractic care. Okay, but that's not the topic of our call today. Today, we want to go through the process of when a patient comes back to see you. Now, this may be, and I just want to frame this may actually be their 4th or 5th report of findings with you, or more even in some cases, right? I have patients that have come back to see me multiple times for their report of findings. And so I always welcome them. I always let them know, I'm so happy to see you. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but yes, I'm going to repeat some of the same things that I've told you in the past at each of those appointments that we've had together. But I want to make sure that I go through this information with you because I think it's important for your well-being and your ongoing health, and really elevating you to a level of health that I think you deserve and are capable of, and then sustaining that, right? So it's important that we preface this with that. I'm going to say some stuff that you may have already heard. I don't mean to be redundant, but let's go through this because it's important for you. Okay. And as the doctor, or as the CA who's an extension of the doctor, it's okay to start this report of findings out with that statement, because then it opens the door to you feeling like you're not sounding like a broken record, right? So let's go through those steps. Oops, this one here. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to review the primary concerns and the effects from their very first visit, the first visit that they had. Maybe it was many years ago, maybe it was 10 ROFs ago. Yes, I'm being a little extreme just to illustrate a point. But from the very first visit they had with you, you want to review that. It may be the same. I have to turn this off. Sorry, that might be, there we go. Oh, sorry. I have to mess it. This is the phone company calling me back, but I will let them know I'm going to call them later. So that's that AT&T thing. Anyways, sorry about that. Let me turn that off now so they know I'm going to be calling them back. Okay. So So we want to preface this. Now, it may be the same primary concern that they had originally, or it may be something new, but we want to remind them of where they started this journey when they first came in. Okay. Now, from there, we want to describe subluxations. And I'll as I explain these bullets, then I'll give you a recap and I'll sort of summarize the whole thing. So just to remind you, this is what you came in with. Here's what a subluxation is, and we want to do this in a Socratic style of education. We want to ask questions. Now, when I move this bone like this, what happens to the nerve? When this bone is compressing here and that nerve is blocked, what happens to the messages that your body is depending on to come through those nerves? What's happening to those messages, right? The Socratic style means you're asking questions. And let me just go back, because that's why we want to make sure we preface this whole thing with that opening statement. Some of this might be a little redundant, but I want to make sure that you get this information because it's important for you, right? So we're going to say that in the beginning, because then it opens the door here to where we can say, we can ask these questions and get an answer that is not disrespectful, or we're not coming across as disrespectful, right? If that makes sense. So Socratic style. So then we describe the subluxation. From there, we review the patient's expectations from before, right? Then we compare it to the current concerns, the current primary concerns, which may or may not be the same, but we're going to compare that to where they're at now. And it could have been 10 years ago. It could have been 2 weeks ago. Well, not 2 weeks ago, but say 2 months ago. Whatever the time frame is, we want to compare those two. And that way, they're up to speed with this sort of evolution of this condition, right? Then we want to explain the current state of their subluxations. So let me just open up the screen here and talk you through this flow, right? And let's see. Let me. Emily, you're always one of our star CAs. So Emily, you can be my patient today. Okay, so Emily, when you came in last year, or just say 2 years ago, when you came in 2 years ago, you shared with us that you were having trouble with your lower back, and it had been hurting you ever since you washed the car. And when you came in, it was really affecting you in a way that you couldn't sit very well, and you were having trouble sleeping at night, so much so that you were having to take medication, Advil, Tylenol, whatever it was, in order to try to sleep through the night and even get through your day, right? That's what you had shared with us back then. Now, the condition that we found at that time when we did your exam was this condition that's called Socratic style, right? Do you remember what the name of that condition was? Yes, I do. It's a subluxation, of course. And we've gone over that many times, I know. But when a subluxation happens, and I have this, and I use a model of the spine, when this bone gets shifted out of alignment, what happens to this nerve right here? Well, it gets pinched. That's right. And when that gets pinched, what's also happening to this disc space? Is it opening up or getting smaller? It's getting smaller. That's right. Now, in your case, when you first came in, we found that your subluxations had been doing that for so long that not only were the nerves pinched to the point where you were feeling symptoms, but the disc had started to degenerate and break down. And we saw that on your x-rays and examination. Now, because of that, we outlined a care plan for you with a series of appointments that was designed to stop the damage and restore the nerve supply. Now, you did great. We got off to a great start. We were happy to help you. So that was all good, but then you stopped. And I just want to ask, at that time, what were your expectations of us? Did we meet your expectations? Did we not meet your expectations? What was it that you were expecting to accomplish? So Emily says, well, the results were great. I felt better and some other things came up, so I stopped coming in. Okay, I understand. And that's certainly, we're always here to take care of you. Now, with what's going on now, what we've found is that you've developed these headaches. Now, sidebar for a second, not part of the script. I'm using 2 different symptoms intentionally. It's almost too easy. I don't want to say too easy, but it's a lot easier when the symptoms are just in the same place and they flared up again, because then the patients typically will say, I'm tired of this. All right, doc, I know I blew it the first time. I'm all in now because it's the same thing coming back and I know what you warned me about. But in the case of symptoms showing up in a different place, I'll use that example because that can be a little bit more challenging, right? So Emily, now that you've come back in, which again, we're happy to help you, you've been telling us about these headaches, which may seem different on the surface, but let me ask you this. Are all the bones in your spine connected together? Yes, they are. Obviously, that's a rhetorical question, right? So if one bone gets misaligned here and the other one has to compensate so that your eyes stay over your feet, wouldn't it make sense that problems could show up in other places that are actually connected, maybe not directly related, but associated with that original subluxation? Yes, that's right. And so what we've found now is that you have another subluxation, which we actually found back then also. And the problem is it's causing other symptoms, even though it's the same condition or it's another condition that's associated with the same original problem. These symptoms have evolved and developed and actually progressed to where you came back in. So now you're sharing with us you've had these headaches. Once again, you're back to taking medication. It's hard for you to sleep at night. And you shared with us these at your last appointment. So what we're finding now, and then we get into, and so this not part of the script, but this is where you would get into showing them what we've talked about for the whole module, right? This whole module. You would get into showing them right here. It says, explain the current state of the subluxation. So you would get into showing them their current subluxations. So this was your x-ray from before. This is what it is now. This was your scan from before. This is what it is now. This is what your exam findings were before. This is what they are now. And you want to compare that. Now, I want to just say something because we all know, well, especially for the doctors on the call, we know that without proper care, without proper attention, a subluxation is like a cavity in your tooth. It will get worse over time, right? Even if you brush and floss every day, time has shown us that you still need to go to a dentist for cleanings because they get to the spots you can't reach with your flossing and toothbrush, right? So it's very important for patients to understand that about their spine. And they have to know that this condition, without proper attention, without a very specific analysis of the spine to locate those areas that have slid under the radar, whether the patient's in great shape, maybe they have good fitness, they stretch, they exercise, they eat well, they're very conscious about their health. Even in that scenario, because all of us, like I'm doing right now, sit more than we should, our spine needs to be checked and analyzed by a chiropractor to find those subluxations that get missed, even for the patient or the person who is maintaining top health, right? Top level of fitness. Even in those cases, they still need chiropractic care. So we want to make sure that that's explained in a way that they understand it and that they can relate to. So that and when I say relate to, that means that they're experiencing these symptoms and they associate it with, oh, it's because I let my condition continue to get worse without managing it correctly. So you can use the cavity in your tooth analogy. You could also use an analogy with diabetes. If this is an older or an elderly patient where maybe they don't have diabetes, but you're pretty confident they have friends that do, then you could use a diabetes example. You could say, if somebody has diabetes, they can manage their condition by taking insulin. And if they do it correctly, they'll live to be 100 years old. You won't even know they have diabetes because it won't show and they won't suffer from it. But what happens to that individual if they don't manage their condition properly? Well, what happens is their condition goes downhill, right? And of course, this would be done Socratic. So your patient's actually answering these questions. What would happen to their condition? Well, doctor or CA, it would get worse. Exactly. So they have to manage it to maintain the level of health in order to do the things that they enjoy without those things going away or being removed because their health is declining. Does that make sense? We want to make sure we do the things that we need to do to maintain the level of health that we want so we can do the things that we love to do, right? Those three things are like a triangle and they have to be in place in order for a person to be pursuing optimum health, right? So with that being said, we're explaining the current state of the subluxation. Now that goes back to the report of findings where we started, right? You're showing them the results. You're showing them this is how your condition has changed. This is how it's gotten worse or gotten better. Actually, I want to just open up my screen and share a story with you. Because yesterday I had a great, this was a patient, she came in, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago originally. Great patient. And she came back yesterday and she's going to continue coming in. And she said that to me. She said, I know I stopped, but I really want to make sure that this time I'm with you, doc. I'm totally in because I realized what happens when I don't get adjusted, and I don't want to do that again. So she came back with sort of this renewed commitment to like, okay, I'm in. And I know sometimes you'll get that from patients, and then, a month or two later, they're feeling great and they disappear. But it's just a nice affirmation when you get that confirmation or that desire from your patient. They realize, I don't want to do that again, and I want to really stick with it this time. So it's just kind of a nice way. And when you do get that, how do you respond? You say, okay, great. No, you want to be as Fred Barge said, and I have his book behind me on the shelf. His book is called "Are You the Doctor? Doctor? Question mark. Are you the doctor? Comma, doctor? Question mark. You want to be the doctor, right? Or CAs, you're an extension of the doctor, so you want to fill that role. So how do you answer that when they say, I'm totally in, I want to do this right this time? My response is, I think that's a very wise decision. Now, I'm not saying that with a smile. I'm not saying that with, oh, yeah, sure, this is so great. No, in my heart of hearts, I know that this is a serious condition. And if it's not cared for properly, it will cause major life-threatening damage to the most important organ in your body, which is your central nervous system. That's a serious thing. That's no joke. And so when a patient comes to that reality check or that decision where they say, I really do want to take care of this the right way this time, that's not a time to be laughing and saying, oh, this is so great. That's a time to say, I think that's a very wise decision. As your doctor, I'm going to tell you that's a wise decision. Now, CAs, because you're an extension of the doctor, you can take that role. And I know, maybe some of the younger CAs on the call, if you don't have kids yet, someday when you have kids, you'll also take on that role, right? There's that parenting aspect, or there's that aspect of, I know what's coming down the road. And so the reason why I'm telling you this is so that you can avoid that. And based on my experience, and as someone who's seen a lot more experience in life, you should listen to me right now because you don't want that, right? So there's sort of that parenting or doctoring position that you need to take on this. Okay, so let's jump back in. Sorry, that was a little bit of a sidebar. And by the way, Emily, thank you so much for being our great star patient today. So we're going to explain the state of the subluxations. Then moving into the next one, you want to obtain the reason why they stopped, right? So going back to the reason, whatever it was, I mean, there's a million reasons why they stopped. Maybe they moved away. Maybe it was a cost thing. Maybe it was a schedule thing. Maybe they just felt better. Whatever that was, find out what it was. And the reason why I want to make sure that this is important. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go through these. You're going to find out what it was. I'll come back to that. You want to project to the future. What does that mean? If you don't take care of this, what's going to happen the next time the floor drops out from under you, right? And prompt a demand for care. So on a scale of 0 to 100%, I'm sorry, that is not the demand for care. I'm not at the clear 100 yet. Prompt a demand for care. So now that you understand the current state of your condition, how do you feel about it? And what would you like to do? That's the quote, demand for care question. Now that you understand this and you've seen it, how do you feel about your condition and what do you want to do about it? From there, oh, I'm sorry, let me go back up because I want to show you the whole page. Okay, so Emily, when you left before, you'd shared with us that you felt better, your symptoms were gone, and I respect that. I mean, I know when you're feeling good, obviously your priorities shift. That's just the fact of life. What I'm concerned about now is if we fast forward ahead another 2 or 3 years, based on what I've just shown you about your condition, how do you think your condition is going to be at that point if you don't do anything about it? Well, it's going to be worse, doctor. That's right. So at this point, I just want to ask, based on what you've seen and what you're experiencing, how do you feel about it? What would you like to do? Well, doctor, I want to make sure I take care of it. And I think that's a wise decision. So let's do that. Okay. So that's that section right there. From there, we're going to provide new recommendations. So this is what I recommend for you. This is the appointments that are needed and the frequency and the schedule And oftentimes what I'll do here is I'll actually do one of two things, right? It might be, and actually this is another great example, but gosh, I've got all these, we had a bunch of ROFs yesterday. So the other example that I had yesterday was this is another woman who came in yesterday, and I hadn't seen her for a long time. I think it was maybe 5 years. And when we retook her x-rays, uh, the new x-rays looked better than the original x-rays that we took when she first came in. Well, I went back and looked, and she had over 30 adjustments when she first came in. So what does that tell me? That tells me that the progress she made from that initial course of care, some of that has actually maintained in her spine. We created enough momentum in that first part of her care that here we are 5 or 6 years later, and she's still experiencing benefits from that chiropractic care that she had. Now, as chiropractors, we know that's true, right? Any adjustment is better than no adjustments. But it was just a nice way to show her, to say, because I had the two x-rays side by side, and I said, here's your x-ray from when you first came in. Here's the new one. Well, look at that. The new one is actually better than when you first came in. So that's really great. I want to compliment you and I want to congratulate you, because oftentimes when somebody goes as long as you did without having chiropractic care, unfortunately, their condition declines and the damage worsens. But you didn't do that. So that's really great. So now I think the main thing I want to stress is, let's not let this go into a tailspin again to where you're feeling like you're feeling. And let's see if we can raise the ceiling even further than we did before, so that your long-term stability is much better. Okay. So that was just a cool analogy, or sorry, example that came up yesterday. She was all in. She said, oh, wow, that's so amazing. I didn't realize that it had made that change already. But yeah, I want to make sure that I take care of it the right way. So let's do it. And so we set up a new care plan for her over a 12-month period. So I see Dr. Knitsch just jumped on the call a few minutes ago. I want to welcome you, Dr. Knitsch, and just your team is awesome, as you know. But I made an announcement in the beginning that we may lose internet. So if that does happen, that I'm having some internet issues with AT&T. So if that does happen, that'll be a problem, but it's not happening. So let's keep going. Okay, so on the we provide new recommendations. Now, it might be that the new recommendations are simply like a catch-up. Let's resume the course of care that we had set up for you before. Maybe it was a previous 12-month, care plan, but we're going to start out by just saying, because you only completed half of it, we're going to just do a month of more frequent visits, and then we'll just jump right back into that care plan. Or it might have been long enough to where you say, based on what we're seeing on your results, I'm going to set up a new 12-month care plan, and then we'll reassess your condition in 12 months from now, right? So you can do it one of two ways, just depending on the circumstances, but we're going to provide those new recommendations. We're going to arrange new financial arrangements based on those recommendations. And this is another important reason to find out why they stopped coming in before, because what if the reason they stopped before was because of cost? If the reason they stopped coming in before was costs, and then they come back in because they need an adjustment, and you okay, I think we're back on. Can I get a show of hands if you can hear me? I think you can. Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'll just go as long as we can. You can go ahead and drop your hands down, but thank you. Yes, we lost internet connection there for a minute, but it jumped right back in. So I better wrap up, because I don't know how long this is going to be open. So we want to provide new financial arrangements. As I was saying, if the reason why they left was because of a financial concern, we don't want to just jump right back in with the same cost. We want to be sensitive to the fact that the reason why they left was likely still, or is still likely to be a problem. So it's always good to find out why they left and provide those the new financial arrangements around whatever that concern was. Okay, so let me go back to sharing my screen, and there we go. Okay, so after that, then we want to get a commitment to follow through, right? A clear 100. So let's make sure that you're really committed on a scale of 0 to 100%. Where do you see yourself? I'm at 100%, doc. Like I shared with you, the woman yesterday who saw her spine had changed from the care she received. She was all in. I'm 100% committed. Great. Okay, let's go for it, right? So from there, we want to deliver a specific adjustment and then walk them up to the front desk, right? And by doing this, they have now had a new report of findings and revisited their condition, had a new sort of experience with that, right? So as it says on your screen, several attempts may be needed for a patient to adopt chiropractic care and philosophy into their lifestyle, right? So yes, it might sound like a broken record, as I said before, but the main thing is we want to make sure that we revisit this so that eventually or maybe not eventually, but just as we go through this process, whether it's one time or several times, they get re-dipped, right? That was the approach that B.J. Palmer used, or the term that he used was to get dipped in chiropractic philosophy, like a chocolate ice cream bar, right? Dipped into chiropractic philosophy. So they may need to get re-dipped a couple times in order to really know, yes, I need to have this from now on as part of my regular healthcare. So I had a couple documents on the website. I'm not going to dive into those because I think it'll actually stretch our bandwidth and we might lose our connection again. But that wraps that up, and that way that'll be our topic today. So real quickly, are there any questions? If you want to raise your hand, I'd be happy to try to open up your line, but I'm nervous that we're going to lose our connection quickly. So just as a recap, though, this wraps up module 3, the report of findings module. The next module is module 4. We'll get into the financial arrangements. And I'm really excited about that module because there's some interesting new developments that have happened with insurances and with cash plans and state-funded insurances. So we're going to cover all of that in module 4. Next week is Independence Day. 4th of July on Thursday, so we won't have a webinar, but I want to invite all of you to enjoy a very special day on the Independence Day. And of course, as I said at the start of our call today, I celebrate every year on 4th of July, I celebrate independence from pharmaceutical products. It has been 34 years since I have taken so much as an Advil. The last time I took any pharmaceutical product of any kind was in 1990 when I had my wisdom teeth pulled and I took some Advil for the swelling, and I fortunately have not needed to take anything since then. And I think I attribute a lot of that to my chiropractic care that I get on a regular basis and to the lifestyle that I enjoy with myself and my family. So I wish you all the best of health, and you can celebrate independence in your own way. But we'll resume and we'll kick off module 4 the week after that. And in the meantime, watch for your packets, which will be mailed to you. So you'll receive those in the meantime. And so you'll get your new binder inserts to put into your binder for module 4, 2024. And you can put those in your binder and have those ready for that training. And then I also want to just say too, because I do see Dr. Kinich on the call, that I have your award as DC of the Year. And I think I'm going to be coming through your neck of the woods sometime in the next 2 weeks. So if I am, I'll let you know, but I would love to come to your office and deliver that award to you personally. We can maybe do a little video and celebrate, but if I can get up through your neck of the woods, I will be sure to stop in and say hello. But other than that, let's go ahead and wrap up today. Again, happy 4th of July, happy Thursday, and enjoy chiropractic. I will talk to you very, very soon. Thanks again for joining.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.